Welcome to the Reseller Rising Podcast by PVP from NJ. Working full-time and reselling part-time. He talks about his entrepreneurial wins, fails, motivations, and inspirations. Here's PVP.
So if you've noticed, new graphics for the podcast and also a new intro there and a new little commercial here and there. I'm trying to spruce things up. We're 10 episodes in. It's actually literally it's 11 episodes because we got episode 0, that little intro episode, but we're 11 episodes in. And, I want to, like I said, try to just make this a little bit more consistent, which is just still my biggest struggle with the podcast. My biggest issue is just trying to be consistent. And, the inclusion of all the clips, I almost think of myself as some kind of minor drudge report, in the sense of like I'm getting all these different sources from all these different places. So, and I enjoy that, and I hope that you enjoy that. And if you don't, please, let me know. Of course, there's so many different ways for you to comment and give feedback, whether it be on the Instagram, on the Facebook, on the blog. The blog is preferred, though. Going to try to spruce up the episode. And like I said before, I definitely will be incorporating interviews or like a question segment. So just so you can hear some other voices besides mine just drone on sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and still beef up this podcast and, try to make it better. I enjoy a smaller format of like 30 minutes or less. One time per week. It's manageable, and also myself personally, when I'm listening to podcasts, I'm just finding that I like shorter podcasts, unless it's someone I find really entertaining. But I prefer just shorter podcasts. Just kind of give me what I need, and then let's just move on to the next thing. I'd rather consume a bunch of short podcasts and have like 1, 2, 3 hours, where I 9 times out of 10 do not finish those podcasts. I begin them and just kind of move on to the next one after maybe the longest period of time being like 40 minutes. But I like it to keep it short. But in the end, you folks are my wonderful and incredible listeners who take the time out of your day to download this and plug this into your ear holes. Yeah, I want to hear what you think, of course, and what your criticisms may be, or what you think can be better, or what you think is already great. Like I said, just give me some time, but I am slowly working on improving things. And the thing, like I said, I really want to start incorporating an interview segment and just starting to bring some other people and just starting to hear some different voices on here. So just wait for it, because it's coming. There are several articles, several reports talking about how in the next 5 years there's going to be 5 billion people coming online. And if that's not enough of a reason to go ahead and start your own business now and have some foundation, or have a foundation built by the time that rolls around, I don't know what's going to motivate you any more than that. That's a potential business. That's potential growth. That's potential expansion of anyone's online business. I mean, it just multiplies everything. It can multiply all the good things. It can multiply all the bad things. But why not get ahead of that and establish your online presence, like I said, in a business, with a blog, with a podcast, and make something of that. So when this audience grows even bigger and gets even bigger, that you can have a small piece of that pie. And remember, folks, we don't need to dominate the world, but if you have, they say, if you have 100 true fans, or if you just have 1,000 people buy your product, it's considered successful. So it's not even a thing where it solely has to be you selling a product, or has to be you're developing this one thing. But let's say, like the basis of the podcast about reselling and selling on eBay, selling on FBA, or whichever other platform, but having your business already set, having that system already there, and it could open it up to this whole world of additional customers. Check it out. Just Google it. Like I said, there's many articles online talking about that by 2020, Google wants to be able to give access to the entire world. And folks, we're already right now in 2015, so going into 2016, which is just weeks away at this point. So you want to go ahead and get ahead of that. That will be a very, very good look, especially with all these new potential customers the world over. Entertainment versus education. These days, I'm finding myself now with working full time and managing my time just between doing this, the podcast, doing eBay, doing FBA. I find myself less watching and listening to an education or educational like podcasts and YouTube videos, and more listening to more entertainment and watching entertainment, I guess. And before, during the summer, when I was working for myself, I would just do both, because there was time to do both. But now, not so much. And I'm kind of feeling guilty about that. Listening to other podcasts also gives me material for this podcast, or this I kind of talk about my take on it. I'm kind of feeling guilty about listening to so much and watching so much entertainment, where I can be putting the time to learning and also focusing on putting more time onto the reselling business. What do I enjoy either watching, or what do I enjoy listening to? Podcast-wise, I've said before, I'm really into pro wrestling, and it's funny because I'm not so much into always sitting down to watch pro wrestling, but I enjoy hearing podcasts about pro wrestling. And like I said, one of my favorite things about pro wrestling podcasts is when you hear the wrestlers themselves talk about stories about being on the road or being here, being there, and I find that fascinating. I think I just find storytelling fascinating. The highs, the lows, and the trials, struggles, and the comeback story. Who doesn't? I mean, isn't that just how history is passed down? Isn't that how? I think that's another very human thing too. I've talked in the past before about humans communing, and that's being our nature. Is to commune, is to come together, to talk with one another. I think storytelling, this goes back to the beginning of time, right? Like cavemen drawing things on the walls and kind of relaying those messages to whoever would come by and see that, and sitting around the campfire and telling stories, sitting around the dinner table and telling stories, sitting around the TV and telling stories. It's just, it's something that we do as humans, and I just find it so fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I think I enjoy so much the John Lee Dumas' podcast and the people he interviews. But what I was trying to say before was, these days I'm just listening more to that stuff and not really getting out of it, maybe in terms of new techniques or tips or tricks that I should use in my own business, or whether it be with the blog, whether it be with the reselling business. And I feel a little bit guilty about that. I also do agree that, just learning all the time, all this new stuff, that how much of it are you going to put into practice? How much of it are you going to go ahead and apply? Or is it you're just learning all this stuff? And also, I feel that the summertime I was like kind of going to school and watching all the YouTube videos and listening to all the podcasts. And now I kind of graduated from school and I'm practicing what I learned. So it comes to a point, like I've said before, where you've learned all this stuff now. It's time just to put it into action, because you're gonna just sit there just learning all the time, and it's kind of like I'm learning all this stuff, but when am I gonna have time to apply it? So it's kind of the balance for me there, and I do want to go ahead and incorporate more educational podcasts where I learn more information, and maybe less on the entertainment, but you also just need to turn your brain off. And I think I've just been turning my brain off way too much and not learning enough, like similar to what I was doing during the summer. So I kind of have this back and forth and finding a balance between the two. But it's definitely more so on the entertainment side than it is on the education side right now, currently. I mean, I'm at work, the hours that I'm at work, and then I do spend like 2, maybe 3 hours or less on the eBay business, like on a daily basis. And, in between all that time is just me kind of entertaining myself with either YouTube videos or, like I said, podcasts. Don't really, I'm a big video game fan, but don't really have time to sit down and play video games. I just feel like it's a time suck. I love pets, but I don't enjoy having them because that's another responsibility that takes a lot of time. So I guess this podcast and like sitting down to watch some YouTube videos that are not incredibly long, just kind of my form of entertainment. And we all need a form of entertainment. We all need a time to go ahead and just kind of deflate and get things going and not get things going. That was what I mean. But education versus entertainment. This is definitely an ongoing discussion for sure. This next section of the podcast is not really about reselling, but it's a great tip for anyone who is trying to build their brand, trying to build their name, and that's to go ahead and, of course, get your own website. But what I really wanted to talk about is how to fill up that website with content and how to come up on the first page of a Google search. If someone's like searching for you by your name or by your brand name or by whatever name you're going by. And what I've found that has worked for me in the small amount of time that I've been doing this, and it's also what I've learned from hearing podcasts such as John Lee Dumas' Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, which I've quoted many times before, and also Pat Flynn's podcast, Smart Passive Income, is filling up the website with content. It seems that what I've learned is that Google likes content, long-form content, short-form content, but it likes content. So similar to building inventory on eBay or building inventory on Amazon, I'm always the proponent that the more amount of inventory that you have, the more sales you're going to have naturally. It's the same with the website, in the sense where, an example being, I have the website, then I have a podcast on iTunes, and then I have YouTube videos. And let's say I'm putting out different content on each one, and that's a lot of work, and I don't do that in that sense, but by putting out content on each one and putting it all under kind of the umbrella of your name, whatever name you're going by, whatever name of your website, then Google likes that, and you'll come up on search on the very first page of the search, which is huge. Like Steve Reagan would say, it's huge, like he always says. Big shout out to Steve Reagan. It's big. It's real big to be on the first page of a Google search, especially if it's your name that you want to get out there. And for the little bit of time that I've been doing what I've been doing, like if you look up Reseller Rising on Google, like it comes up on the first page. When I discovered that, I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe this. What I found has worked, transcribing the podcast onto as a blog post on your website/blog, transcribing the YouTube video as a blog post on your website/blog, and linking to that stuff. And on the podcast, on the YouTube videos, you put links back to your website, and like building this whole web and just kind of doing that repeatedly. You're going to go ahead and see your content build, and like I said, Google likes that. Google likes the specific content for a specific website. And myself personally, what I do is I go ahead, let's say I have the podcast episode, and I learned this from Jordan Malik's podcast about selling on FBA. It was so much great information. I recommend that I'll link to his show on the in the show notes. Of course, also Scavenger Life, which I always talk about. And what I do, what they do, I copy what they do in the sense of I will go ahead and the podcast episode that I'll put out, I'm going to put that into a YouTube form. And then back on the website/blog, I'm just going to go ahead and make one big old post where I transcribe, not letter for letter, but I transcribe the gist, and then I add even additional things sometimes that are not in the podcast or not in the YouTube video, just kind of like what comes to me or what I think is a good addition to it. So it'll make the content, a little bit unique. And once again, building this web where you have the podcast on iTunes, you have your YouTube videos, where the YouTube video, once again, can just be a podcast form in a YouTube video. It's kind of audio with some static pictures. But in each of the notes or kind of your description for, let's say the podcast, let's say for the YouTube videos, you're linking back to your website. And once again, what I'm trying to say is you're building a web. You're building a web, and the more podcasts you have, the more YouTube videos and the more posts you have on your website. Google likes that, and when people search for you, you're going to come up on the page first, and that is a very good look. And that is what's been working for me for a little bit of time that I've been doing this, and it's what I recommend.
If you like what you hear, you can support PvP by doing any of your shopping through his eBay or Amazon banners on his blog at www.pvpfromnj.com, or click the links in the show notes of this podcast. Do all your shopping through these links at no extra cost to you. Your support is deeply appreciated.
So October's come and gone, and we're in November now. And I thankfully to my job and eBay picking up in sales, a little bit on FBA as well, I've actually, for the first time since doing this podcast, I'm actually in the black and no longer in the red, meaning I actually made some money in the month of October as opposed to have lost money. And that's with the combination, like I said, of my online sales and my job. I've been finding that I'm just getting a lot more comfortable with eBay, and I think that's where my main focus is going to be just moving forward. I'm going to try to push it all the way to 1,000 to 2,000 items, and like I said, my fear of that is just like finding the storage space and keeping all this stuff, but it's really what brought me to the dance to begin with, and I just find it's one of those things. I think everybody maybe comes to a point where they're doing something so often and they just kind of feel very comfortable with it, and it just fits real easy, and that's kind of the place I'm getting to with eBay. So I definitely think I'm going to just continue pushing on eBay, even when the slow times hit and everything. That's my base right there. That's my foundation. And doing less FBA, and going to revisit Kindle down the road, because that's actually still producing money, even though it's totally chump change. But that's still producing money, and I can see the proof is already there that the money can be made on there. So, but eBay has definitely been picking up really, really well, and it's what I'm going to be putting my attention on. And I'm very much inspired by the Scavenger Life people, and like I mentioned them in so many of my podcasts. But this can definitely be a thing, you know. So it's super important just to focus on the one thing. And I've said that before, and then I came with another podcast saying, okay, I'm going to do two. But I'm seeing now more and more that just, especially with work and time management, just to even do this podcast and to do eBay and just to simply sleep and eat and exercise alone and keep a work schedule, it's a lot. So definitely, you know, I'm going to stop putting my thumb on Kindle so much and just go full on with eBay. Not totally no to Kindle, but just, I'm sorry, it's FBA and Kindle, but just a lot less. And I realized that in order to get to 1,000 to the 2,000 item range, to possibly even the 3,000 item range, that's going to take time. That's going to take years. And I already have a year into this. And like I said, it's been a year of learning, a year of watching a lot of other YouTubers and resellers and all the knowledge I gained from them. But these days, I haven't really been watching too much of that stuff. My membership even in the green room has lapsed, and I was thinking about renewing it, but I think for now I'm just going to go and do my thing, and when the need arises to, you know, be around the community again, then, you know, do so. But I know what I have to do, and I know what I have and get done. The days of like watching endless YouTube videos is kind of over right now. For right now, like I said, with time management, I don't have time to sit there and watch and learn. The action has to be taken. So I'm going to make the commitment to go ahead and if it takes years to go ahead and build a inventory of 1,000 to 2,000 items, then so be it, or more, you know. If the Scavenger Life folks can do it, then who's to say that I can't? And this is the pressure I'm putting on myself. The proof is in the pudding. In terms of having the eBay store and the inventory and the item selling and what sells, and it's just time to multiply that, and less time sitting and learning and more time taking action and producing results. And that's where this is going. But I'll be honest, on the flip side, I would love if a lot of the reselling community would turn their videos into podcast form, because I think, consume it a lot more. I definitely consume more podcasts than I do YouTube videos these days. It's just, like I said, time management, sitting down, watching a YouTube video, as opposed to being on the go or picking, packing, shipping, or just coming to work, going home from work, during a workout, walking. I really wish that a lot of the reselling YouTube community would turn their content into podcast or audio form, because there is so much incredible information that you just can't keep up with all of it. I don't have time to sit down and watch YouTube videos. I don't. Podcast form is the way to go. I really, I'm not just saying this because I have a podcast, but I know myself personally, like I'm going to go, if I have a choice between the two, I would go podcast first over YouTube video any day of the week. And it's because of, you know, the portability of this platform and how you can go ahead and take it wherever you need to go and learn on the go. This is the way to go. I really, really am a big proponent of that. I'm a big advocate of the podcast form over the YouTube form. I am. I mean, it's better. It's great to see, but it's better just to take it with you, and you can kind of rewind and this and that on the go.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Visit pvpfromnj.com for more. Keep making that popcorn pop.